we went from Romans 8 to Romans 9. Because what you've got is Romans 8, one of the most inspiring chapters in the New Testament, followed by one of the most confusing chapters in the New Testament. You have one of the most unifying chapters, followed by one of the most debated chapters in the New Testament. Look, I'll be honest, as I studied this, I thought, I probably should have combined 9 and 10. I made it a little bit more digestible. Like if you look at commentaries on Romans 9, a lot of people kind of skip through some things because it's just hard. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And so here's what I would say going into it, is that a mistake we make in Romans chapter 9 is that we often study it academically or we debate it theologically when it was actually written very personally. Can you see how you might reach some of the wrong conclusions, where you might lean into some of the wrong things? If you take a letter that was written personally and you decide the primary lens through which you're gonna look at that letter is a theological debate or academic challenge, that's not the tone of chapter 9. Like Paul is writing this letter in a very personal way. Imagine that you write a letter to someone that you care deeply about, and you just get to part of the letter where you're especially vulnerable with your frustration. How would it feel then if someone takes that part of the letter and says, I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's diagram that part of the letter. Let's debate the finer points of it. It's not to say that chapter 9 isn't theologically rich. It's not to say that it isn't intellectually challenging. It's just to say that he wrote it, so we should read it in a very personal tone. He's not writing chapter 9 from the position of a seminary professor. Like he is writing out of the overflow of his heart to people that he cares about deeply, people that he loves very much. And so here's what's gonna happen. In 9, 10, and 11, he's gonna talk about Israel, the Jewish people, and his heart for his people and how much he desperately wants them to receive Jesus and how torn up he is because it seems that most of the Jews had rejected Jesus. And Paul was a Jewish believer. He knows what it's like to have been where they are. He knows what it's like to be against Jesus, to harden his heart against Jesus, to miss out on the grace and the power of Jesus. And so he sees all of his people, or so many of his people, who have rejected Jesus, and he would do anything. I mean, we'll see it here. I mean anything for these people who have rejected Jesus to receive Jesus.